I appreciate a couple of moments. All right, let's get into the shady comments. And to me, it just sounds like a disgruntled ex who's not over the breakup. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business, the NFL, and you can match the numbers and look at his production to Murray's production all day long. But the bottom line is, according to Chip Kelly, that money, that was his contract trade away, freed up money for Bradford. What do you make of those comments by LaShawn McCoy?
Well, LaShawn McCoy, I think, is, as you're saying, disgruntled because of the way he was let go. He was not told. He found out via the media that he was leaving. And let's face it, Chip Kelly didn't do himself any favors by not coming out and saying what he just said, saying that it's a money decision. He kept quiet about it. He didn't want to tell the media a lot of things, didn't want to tell the fan a lot of things, and left a lot of ambiguity out there. And of course, this is going to be the grudge match coming up this weekend everybody's looking forward to.
Let me ask you this, though. You made a point about the lack of communication, but by all accounts, he did try to call McCoy several times, even after McCoy made the comments or insinuating that Kelly gets rid of a lot of all the good black players. So I think it's a situation where if you're McCoy, you actually come off looking worse now by saying what you did the other day, and you're not going to shake his hand, where you actually could have looked like a pretty decent guy, and the bigger person say, sure, the NFL's a business, and I'll shake his hand. They had to do what's best for the franchise. To me, he just kind of comes off as sour grapes and really bitter that they traded him.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what he did, he went for the sharpest knife in the drawer. Let's face it, you don't want to bring race in this situation unless it absolutely has to come to that. But everyone knows this was not a race decision. They did not get along. He was looking for Kiko Alonso, a guy who was cheaper and a guy who was one of his Oregon guys coming in his system. And he felt he can replace a running back. And let's face it, in the NFL, running backs have been easily be replaced. Look at Marshawn Lynch, and now Thomas Rawls has stepped right in for him.
That's an excellent point. Again, a couple of minutes with Lloyd Vance, contributing writer and reporter for the NFL Network, does a great job. Check him out online as well. And, Lloyd, we talk about running backs. It's kind of been the theme of the week with McCoy coming back with the Buffalo Bills, DeMarco Murray, and the fact that he sat down conveniently on the plane ride home with Jeffrey Lurie about his carries. But I made the point that, if Matthews is still dealing with the concussion issues, whether he's going to be full go on Sunday, the way that Buffalo front four plays, there's going to be some opportunities, too, to attack the line of scrimmage. They might need a guy like Murray, a little more of a power back to kind of wear down that defensive front, maybe in the third or fourth quarter. So my point is they're probably going to look to him to carry the football maybe 10, maybe 15 times. I don't know. What you've seen on film this year with DeMarco Murray, do you believe it's more of a little bit of the offensive line and DeMarco Murray, or flat out DeMarco Murray's running style does not fit this offensive scheme?
Yeah, I think, too, that he doesn't fit this scheme. And let's face it, he came here after Frank Gore did not want to join the Eagles. He goes to the Colts, and they just went to grab a running back. Even though they had Matthews signed the day before, they get Murray, yes, the leading rusher in the league, but he's a downhill type of guy, needs to get his pad level behind him, and he can't go wide. And let's face it, not having a fullback really affects him. So it's a situation where these guys are not compatible, but let's face it, they're together given the money that they gave him. So Murray needs to figure out the way to make this work, to figure out how to help this football team. Let's face it, the Eagles in the middle of the playoff hunt, and he's got to find a way to help the team, whether it's 8 carries or 20 carries.
Man, it doesn't help that your center, too, probably needs to put on about 20 pounds in the offseason, and Jason Kelsey. You mentioned the division as a whole. The Giants, the Skins, the Eagles, all 5-7. Dallas right there with a pulse at 4-8. Every year, Coughlin kind of goes on the hot seat, or he's on the hot seat prior to the season. I don't recall a time where, in my estimation, a Hall of Fame quarterback and a Hall of Fame head coach, and let it play out because I know how people get with Eli Manning, but the numbers are there, the Super Bowls are there. But basically, 2 consistent guys, a quarterback you can win Super Bowls with, a head coach who's going to the Hall of Fame, that's won Super Bowls. How in the world that they can mismanage so many games late, and specifically, forget about the Saints game, forget about the Dallas game, the second game, forget about the Patriots game, but you look at that Jets game, and my only problem with the play call on 4th and 2 is, the Giants can't run the ball, a lick. They just can't run the ball a lick. So with 8.5 to go, you're up 20-10. The Jets weren't doing anything in the second half. So why not take the 3? You make it 23-10. You got to have them at least 2-possession game. And you're looking at a situation where they still got to get 2-point conversions, this, that, the other thing. But they got to drive the length of the field. And, the play was set up where Randall was supposed to rub on Dwayne Harris, and it was a bad pick, and it was a bad throw. And there you have it. But the way it's played out this year for Coughlin, I have the utmost respect for this guy. And this is kind of tough to watch because I have a feeling at the end of the year, if they finish out 6-10, 7-9, you're looking at 4 or 5 games that they single-handedly lost late in the fourth quarter. Jerry Reese isn't going anywhere. McAdoo's not going anywhere because you're not getting rid of another offensive coordinator and having an NFL quarterback 13 years now in the NFL start fresh. That goes on Coughlin. So how do you think it's going to play out with Coughlin in New York, and what were your thoughts on that play call late in that game against the Jets?
Yeah, that was a play call where they should have made a better decision. And when you look at the Jets, you hit it right on the head right there because 10 of 12 games they've led going in the fourth quarter, and 5 of those games they've blown the league where they were outscored 54-3 in the third quarter. And you bring up that Jets game, 20-10 lead with 4:25 left to go in the game. You have to be able to close out these types of situations, and it is surprising given that the Giants always found a way to close the door with that tough running game. And I think that's a key thing for this team. They just cannot dictate the pace of the game because their running game with Jennings is just not where it needs to be. Overall, these 3 teams we're talking about, the Giants, the Eagles, and the Redskins, all of them have tough games coming up, and particularly the Giants at Miami, Carolina, at Minnesota, and Philadelphia to end it. It's a tough stretch there, and they got to figure out a way to win these games and make it tight. So it comes down to Week 17 like I've always been predicting.
Yeah, and again, a couple of minutes with Lloyd Vance. You're right. I think the way it's going to play out, and just to clarify one thing, McCoy's 2015 cap hit was 17 times Alonzo's cap hit. So if the Eagles needed to clear space under the cap before they can trade Bradford, his cap hit this year is $13 million. So again, you look at the numbers, you're right. Probably the timing of saying we freed up money to get Bradford, probably not the best timing, but it is what it is when it comes down to a business standpoint. We saw what the Dallas Cowboys were able to do against the Washington Redskins. Just when you think the Washington Redskins are going to, I don't want to say take that next level, but the way the division is, play competitive ball and win a couple games, they fall flat on their face. Right now, on this Thursday, December 10th, who wins the NFC East?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'll just say I think it's between the Giants and the Eagles Week 17. And when I look at the Redskins, I just tweeted this. They are 0-5 on the road, and they have 3 upcoming road games against at Chicago, at Philadelphia, and then they close the season at Dallas. So they cannot win on the road, and I just can't see the Redskins overcoming that.
Yeah, but and I can also turn around, too. When you talk about the Giants, I don't know how they're going to stop anyone. They can't rush the quarterback. They have an anemic ground game. I think Rashard Jennings, 11 straight games now, 65 or less yards rushing. It's there for the Eagles. Now, if they go out and they lose to Buffalo, you almost look at that New England game and say, you're right back where you started. But I've said this for the last several weeks. The team in the NFC East that's going to go on a late-season winning streak, whether it's 2 or 3 games, that's going to be enough to win the division. I want to get your thoughts, a couple more on the NFC. I thought Minnesota was ready to take the next step, and they got absolutely blasted by Seattle. Where do you put Minnesota in the landscape of the NFC with teams like Carolina, Atlanta? You even want to throw Green Bay and Seattle there as well. But what's your thoughts overall on Minnesota this year?
Right, and Minnesota, they're 8-4 right now, and they have a very good record. But when I look at them, they're an incomplete team. Teddy Bridgewater, yes, he's made some efficient throws, but he's not able to get the ball down the field. They keep defenses honest against Adrian Peterson. We saw that last week, only 18 yards rushing against Seattle. They were loading the box up and taking him out of the game. And then defensively, they're missing 4 key starters on their defense, particularly Harrison Smith with a knee injury, just not playing the way they need to be. Now, they may be able to squeak it in, get that 6th spot in the NFC, but right now they're looking like a team that's limping along.
And they're going against a very good Arizona team. Arizona at home, they put up a lot of points. Carson Palmer, again, looks reborn, certainly in the MVP talk along with Cam Newton. I'm going to bite a little on this one because For some reason, I just didn't think the Panthers were legit. I've been watching them over the last several weeks, and, great teams find ways to win, even though they had their hands full against the Saints, which I thought was going to be a tough game in New Orleans. They found a way to win. Forget about the defense. I mean, Newton just single-handedly carrying this team. Are they going to run out of steam? Is this going to be a 13-3, 14-2 number one seed, and then they get upset in a divisional game?
Actually, it's a tough situation. Do you want to go 16-0 with all that pressure, or do you want to be fresh for the playoffs? And they have 4 games, and then they have Atlanta twice, they at New York, and then they end at Tampa Bay. So when I look at them, they seem to be a complete team, but they need to give it a little bit more running game. That defense is doing very well. They keep finding players all over the place, but they have to stay healthy. So right now, I say they're one of the top teams, but they are beatable. But the thing is, you've got to stop them in the fourth quarter. Cam Newton, very dangerous with the game on the line down the end.
Yeah, that's where he kills you, especially keeping drives alive. I want to get back to the NFC East for a minute. Jerry Jones pretty critical of the Cowboys coaching staff, thinking maybe they could have won a couple games here and there, even though they didn't have Tony Romo. And I think anytime you're the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, there's pros, there's cons. There's some really good perks, but then there's situations like this where the owner, who is basically the GM and head coach at times, is going to say certain things. You look at Jason Garrett with that contract extension, and they've had a god-awful season. And you lose Bryant, you lose Romo. If Romo's healthy, they run away with the NFC East. But is that putting Garrett on notice, or is that more or less Jerry Jones kind of just voicing his frustration that, wow, you know what, this is a bad division. If Tony was healthy, we would have ran away with this.
Yeah, clearly Jason Garrett is his guy, and he's almost been called a puppet in the past because, let's face it, Jerry Jones is the lead guy of that organization. If they did ever make a change, I would look for a guy like Sean Payton to go there with Dallas ties. But Jerry Jones' presence is so strong, and I do think he kind of misses Tony Romo more than anybody. Let's face it, Dallas does have a very good defense. They showed that Monday night, and if they did have Romo to make a play here, play there, they probably would win this bad division. But their season is probably going to end this week at Green Bay.
Last one for you. If I gave you, I'll give you 2 teams right now. I'll give you 3 teams in the AFC. You tell me as a wild card which one would be the most dangerous. You got the Jets, you have Kansas City, and then you have Pittsburgh. What's going to be the most dangerous team? What team's capable of going on a run?
It's got to be between the Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But right now, I'll say it's the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're coming along defensively. I know they're still allowing big plays here and there, but offensively, they can play with anybody. They have 2 great receivers, tight end, and then they can run the ball with D'Angelo Williams better than people think. So they're coming along at the right time, and it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to squeak in and get that last spot in the playoffs, but they're a very dangerous team.
One thing about Andy Reid head coach teams, when they start to go on a roll, they go on a roll. You look at the fact that Kansas City loses Jamal Charles. Alex Smith's not check down Charlie anymore. He's actually stretching the field. Macklin's putting up some solid numbers. I'll tell you, though, Pittsburgh to me is always a tough out. As long as you have a healthy Big Ben and the way those wideouts play, Bryant and Brown, I mean, you can argue right now Marshall and Decker are the top 2 duo in the NFL, along with those 2. But man, I'll tell you, Pittsburgh with their weapons. I mean, I would not want to. They don't have the same defense, but I would not want to face them. I think they can go up on the road. I think they can beat a Denver. I think they can beat a Cincinnati because of the quarterback, because of those wide receivers. They just constantly make big plays.
They do, and this is a dangerous team. We're going to see this week at Cincinnati.
Yep.
How dangerous they're going to be in the playoffs. And as you said, Ben loves playing against the Bengals, so it should be a good matchup.
All right, don't forget, everyone, follow Lloyd on Twitter at Lloyd Vance, and good football updates as well. And I know he's got that. You still got. How's your book doing? Your ESPN book, The Third and a Mile.
Third and a Mile is doing very well, and it's the history of the black quarterback, and everybody still wants to talk about it this time of year when you start talking about the playoffs and
sure.
what Doug Williams did in the playoffs. And it's going to be interesting to see if some of these young guys like Cam Newton, a guy who we worked with for that book, we knew him when he was high school, or how he does going forward. So the book's doing very well, and thanks for asking.
And a lot of people forget, too, all those years Terry Bradshaw was with the Steelers, they always wanted, Rooney's always wanted to start Joe Gilliam, but the problem was, inconsistent play, and he got hurt. He was a heck of a quarterback, but it's a good book and a great read, especially with the holidays around the corner. All right, my friend, have a good sports weekend. Enjoy the games. We'll talk next week.
All right, thanks for having me on. I'll talk to you later.